So I'm going to start off with talking about how I got connected with the medium in the first place. I never looked her up. It never even occurred to me to try to like find a spiritual medium, or also like my parents have been active Catholics my entire life, and it never occurred to them to like try to get a priest over or anything. It just wasn't on our radar. It wasn't something we ever talked about as a family doing, none of that. So this is the winter of 2002. My mom and I had a mutual friend. I would say only mutual because my mom met her through yoga, and then I babysat her kid for her for many, many years. But she invited us to this winter solstice party. So we went, and my mom was always such a social butterfly. So I am too, I'm not going to lie. So we kind of went our separate ways for a good portion of the night, and like just got to talk to all the mostly women there, and just get to know a whole bunch of people. So towards the end of the night, who turned out to be the medium approached me, and she introduced herself, and we just kind of started talking. She asked how I knew the hostess of the party. I mentioned to her I was there with my mom. And then she said, like, as we're talking, she goes, I have a really weird question for you. Has anyone ever told you that you're like surrounded by a flurry of spiritual activity? And I was like, no, this would be a first for me. And then she was like, she's like, that's actually kind of what drew me over here to talk to you, is that you just kind of have this energy around you. And I was like, oh, like, is it good? Is it bad? And she was, oh, that's an interesting question. And I was like, okay, but is it good or is it bad, girl? So then she says to me, she kind of leans in and she goes, tell me about your basement. So my next question, I remember just looking at her and being like, did something follow me here from my basement? And she just kind of stepped back and she went, no, nothing's like followed you. I can just tell you've been around these different energies and entities, and that like you're kind of walking through them all the time. It's like almost like you've got like a dusting on you. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I told her a little bit about the basement, just that it was creepy vibes. I didn't go into like anything specific that happened at the house. And I did this for several reasons. One, I'm talking to this woman who's friends with a woman I babysit for on the regular. At this point in time, it was basically my main stream of income. So I didn't want to say anything that would maybe get back to the hostess of the party and have her go, I don't know if this person is safe to watch my kid anymore. Two, we're at the point where we don't talk about the house. We don't talk about the house outside of the family. When stuff happens, like we only mention the really big, scary stuff to each other within the family. We're not talking about it. So I was also like just a little uncomfortable, also thinking like, what if I tell this woman and she tells the hostess, and the hostess tells my mom, and my mom gets mad at me for talking about this outside of the house. And lastly, I thought, well, if we do ever call her, I don't want to give her any like leads basically on what's going on. So I was very vague. I just said, yeah, she has a lot of bad energy. A lot of people are creeped out by the basement. I got so creeped out down there when we first moved in that I had to move to a different room on a different floor in the house. And she was just like, oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. Have you ever had anybody over to like figure out what's going on? Like a medium or a priest or a spiritual cleanser, anything like that? And I was like, no, we've never even talked about it. And at that point, my mom came over and was like, hey, we should probably get going. I did introduce him. I was like, oh, person X, this is my mom. Mom, this is person X. I didn't mention that she was a medium to my mom. I just said she knows the hostess from wherever she had told me she actually knew her from. And my mom said, okay, I'm going to get our coats if you're ready to go. And I said, yeah, that's fine. The medium takes a card out of her wallet and hands it to me and says, I know you don't really have any interest in talking to me now or having me come over. She goes, things are going to get worse before they get better. And I think by the end of the next calendar year, you're going to want to reach out. So just keep my card somewhere. So again, this is the end of 2002. She was saying by the end of 2003, we were going to want to call her. She was really nice. I said goodbye. We went home. And as my mom was driving us home, I told her what this person had said, that I was like, she was really nice, but she said that she sensed all this energy around me, and she asked me point blank about the basement. And then I said, have you ever told the hostess anything about the basement? Mom goes, oh my God, no. Like, no, I have not. I never tell anybody. I'm like too freaked out to tell anybody. I don't want anyone to think I'm crazy. So I was like, well, she gave me this card and she said that things are going to get worse before they get better, and that like we're going to want to call her. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So we had kind of a philosophical ride home, like just talking about the house and the hauntings and mediums and psychics and energies and all that stuff. And when we got home, my mom said, hey, leave that business card on the kitchen table and I will file it. And what's funny, side note nation, just because I love talking about my mom, this woman was like type A personality through and through. She had all these different filing systems for filing phone numbers. We had like a little like Rolodex by the phone, and she had like all the phone numbers cataloged in there. She then also, since I was wee, had like a day planner that was this thick, that just like business cards and newsletters and all this sorts of junk went in there, plus her calendar appointments, plus like any paperwork from doctor's appointments, schools, whatever. So when she said leave it on the table, I'm going to file it, was like, oh, we're holding on to this. She doesn't think this is nonsense. So that was how we even got involved with the medium. The medium was right. Things would get worse before they got better, before we decided to call her. So this weekend, I'm going to tell you about some of the incidents that happened before we called her, and then I will tell you what happened when she finally showed up.